me. They hate me. Why am I here?
That and, well, so many other shocking things happen on this episode because we are joined by 20-time Classic qualifier, 9-time Bassmaster winner, former Classic champion, former Angler of the Year, former Bass Nation national champion, the one and only Mike Iaconelli joins me this week. Oh.
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course you, my humpers. Happy hump day to all of you, and welcome into the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 248th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I hope wherever you're watching or listening from that life is treating you well. It is a very, very busy week in my life. Moment of total honesty. As you watch this, I am not here. God willing, I am in Gunnersville, Alabama, getting ready to kick off the 2026 Bassmaster Elite Series. And boy, we have a compelling event ahead of us. No matter the event, I just want to go into an event with questions. And boy, we got lots of questions. If you've been following Angler social media, it's frigidly cold there. We're talking about frozen back bays on Lake Gunnersville. We're talking about water temperature in the 30s. I want to see how these anglers deal with that. Thankfully, it's supposed to warm throughout the event, so it should get better and better, but it's going to be fun to see how the anglers deal with that. On top of that, this is the first event without forward-facing sonar. Half the events have forward-facing sonar. Half the events do not have forward-facing sonar. All year long, we've heard people pontificate how this is going to affect things for one angler or another, how this is going to change things. Well, now we get to see. Now we get some answers, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I hate bringing up the F word because it's kind of like, I always say, politics, religion, and forward-facing sonar. The three topics you should not bring up because everybody has an opinion and it ends up being a disagreement. But wherever you sit, if you're for it, you'll want to watch it to see how it affects it. If you're against forward-facing sonar, this is what you've been asking for. So I can't wait to watch it go down. I can't wait to have a front row seat. And with the Bassmaster Elite Series back in your life, obviously you'll be able to watch Bass Live. You'll be able to watch the weigh-ins each and every afternoon. And back in your life, once again, Mercer in the morning. 1 hour before takeoff each and every day of Elite Series competition. So this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can watch Mercer in the morning. And for those of you who haven't seen it, basically I walk around with a microphone and get in anglers' faces before they're actually awake. And Lord knows what tomfoolery we get up to. But it is usually a good time, and it's live, so Lord knows what gets said or what we walk into. It can get, awkward at times, and it's live. So the good news is, since it's live, I can't beep out the names. Boy, did that get some of you ornery. I mean, once again, the whole reason I beeped those names out is because before we recorded, Matty said he didn't want to mention any names, and I thought I should respect that. Because somebody gets comfortable and they start firing out names, I don't want to start a war. I don't know what happened on the water. That was between him and the other angler that was there, and truly they're the only ones that know it. But he threw out a bunch of names, and what it would have just turned into is those anglers would have contacted me and said, hey, I want to come on the show and give my side of the story. And it would have been an episode of Jerry Springer. As a podcaster, probably a lot smarter to go that route, but that's not where I made my decision from. I tried to do what I thought was right, but it did wind some of you up. So some of you liked it, but some of you really thought it was the worst thing in the world that I beeped those names out. So I honestly, I don't know if I'll ever do it again, because what ended up happening is then you guys started guessing, and most of your guesses were wrong. You had people like Trey McKinney getting thrown under the bus who because Matty said it was a tournament leader and Trey won that event. It wasn't Trey. He doesn't need to take any more strays. You had a bunch of anglers thrown under the bus. I don't know. I tried to do the right thing. I don't always do the right thing, but my goal is to do the right thing. So Lord knows how we'll deal with that in the future. But in Mercer in the Morning, it's all live, and we don't have to deal with anything like that. You guys know I like to try and highlight the good stuff here. Here's a story that I want to get into before we get into this show. And I don't know any of the people connected to this. I don't know the businesses. I don't know the person. This was just a story sent to me by one of our fine viewers. And I thought, wow, people are doing something cool in the world and they deserve to be recognized for it. Before I mention the people involved and the companies involved, I want to read what they posted on Facebook. Time in the water begins with a lot of firsts. First time on the water, first boat ride, first fish, the first quiet moment when everything slows and the lake takes over. Those firsts matter. Being there for them is a gift. There's a gratitude in witnessing someone discovering the lake for the first time, in sharing a moment that will be remembered. But the lake also teaches you about lasts, the last boat ride, the last fishing trip, the last cast. Sometimes people say one more cast, believing there will always be another. And sometimes there isn't. The last cast isn't about the fish. It's about returning to the water where all the firsts happened. It's about being present in the same place that shaped a lifetime. About holding all those beginnings and endings together for one final moment. The reason I mention this story is because of the fine folks at Nipissing Serenity Hospice and Lake Nipissing Outfitters. There was a gentleman, I believe, they were dealing with, and he was at the end, and it was his dream to fish, to go back out there one more time. I could not imagine the logistics and the sheer manpower it takes to make something like that happen. But I am thankful I live in a world where people care enough to make a moment like that happen. So thank you to Nipissing Serenity Hospice and Lake Nipissing Outfitters. Again, I don't know anyone connected to this. If you guys know people from there, please send them this clip so they know that somebody in the world somewhere is thankful for what they did, because if you ask me, that's pretty cool. And it's something that people don't want to talk about because it's not really happy, but it shows a happiness in the world. So yeah, it's going to be a fun week. Can't wait to get to Gunnersville. It's going to be a fun tournament. Horrible week for me to have a business trip, to be honest. Lot going on. My 24th wedding anniversary. My beautiful wife, Sarah, who you guys know puts this show together for us each and every week. She is an absolute saint, way better than I'll ever deserve. Happy anniversary, my love. I hate that I'm on the road. Why'd I call her my love? I don't ever call her my love, but I did on this podcast. So happy anniversary, my love. If we were a case of beer, we'd be done. But the good news is our love is a keg and it runneth over. How romantic is that? For those of you who don't get it, a 2-4 is a case of beer in Canada. It's a big thing. Also, my daughter's birthday on Sunday. Happy birthday, Cadence. Sorry, I can't be there. Hopefully this public happy birthday makes you feel a little bit better. I hate that I will miss that. Hate that I'm also going to miss the Super Bowl. Super Bowl's a big deal around my house, regardless of what teams are in it. It's a big deal, and I hate that I will be away for it. So good luck to all of you, whether you're a Patriots fan or a Seahawks fan. Should be a good Super Bowl, and I can't wait to watch it go down while I'm at an airport bar. Yes, that's probably where I'll be watching it this year. Giddy up. We got a great show, a great guest that goes a lot of places I never expected this conversation to go. I know I said that last week with Maddie, but again this week, it's so cool when guys take the conversation in a different direction, and Ike definitely does that. This is a must listen, and Mike Iaconelli has accomplished so much in this sport, and he's just getting started. He is making a pivot, but man, some of the stuff he says on this podcast, very, very cool. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and hook up with, clearly this was recorded before he hit the road so that you guys would have a podcast here today. I hope you enjoy it. Now, without further ado, Mike Iaconelli.
Mike Iaconelli, we've done a bunch of stuff together over the years, and this is, well, we've been having a lot of fun before I hit record, really, I'll be honest.
We have.
Yeah. But this is something that I imagined would happen one day, but I had no idea when. But you made a big announcement, and this is your final season of competition.
Yeah.
Does that sound weird to hear?
It sounds weird. This is the first podcast, real podcast, that I've, literally, this happened last night. And hearing it from you, especially from you, sounds weird. It does. It sounds weird. But I said this yesterday, but I want to say it to you as I'm looking at you. Dave, this was the toughest, easiest decision that we have ever made. And when I say we, Becky and I, and it was tough because it's who I am. I've competed for over 30 years. I close my eyes and I've always wanted to do this. I'm doing this. I'm living it. So it's who you are. Yeah. And when you close that door and open another, I think there's those emotions that come through. So there's that. But it was also the easiest decision that we've ever made. And I always said that I would know. I felt like things were going to line up. And when all the things lined up, I would have a gut feeling that said, this is the year. And that happened, Dave. It happened. And it wasn't one thing. It was like a lot of things. But they lined up. It felt right. And, the last part of it is I always wanted to do it on my own terms. And I've seen that go the other way. I've seen tournament anglers that were forced out, whether it was from requalification or whether it was financial. I've seen guys, burn out. I've seen guys, the whole gamut of why they age out. And I just wanted to go out and remember why I love the sport, why I love competing at Bassmaster. That was so important for me. And so the timing was right, and so Dave, I'm not sad, upset sad about it. I'm excited. The sad emotions are honestly just from thinking about your history in the sport or thinking about your life in the past. That's happy sad. So it's all positive, and I'm excited. I'm excited about the future.
You say you knew the time was right, and you said it was a bunch of different things. Were those just things that, was it thoughts that popped through your head? Is it things that you saw? Is it what are those things where it started in your head thinking, now's maybe the time?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a lot. So it's honestly probably 8 or 10 things. And, as these things combined, it sort of felt right. So, obviously, I think one is my performance, the last few years is below par. I don't want to be average. I never want to be average out there. I think that's for sure part of it. I think the tournament world is a different place right now. And I am not a hater of technology. I have no animosity toward the young Bassmaster elites, the young anglers coming up. But that the whole technology scope game doesn't feel right to me. And that's just me personally. Doesn't feel right. From a standpoint of the financial side of it, right? And we're talking about support unit and sponsorships and partners, right? And Dave, you know this better than anybody. It is a different world. When you're getting phone calls from companies you worked with for a long time, not dissatisfied with what you're doing, but just saying, professional tournament fishing is not what it used to be. Pro staff is not what it used to be. That hurts hearing that. because you're embedded in the history, of the heyday of that, of the golden era of that. So, there was that tournament side of it. Then there was the family side of it. And once again, Dave, I love this talking to you because I feel like when you're talking to a peer and someone that's done it and someone that lives the life, they can understand a lot better. But it is a strange life. And, like from a standpoint of the family, right? My family, like, big things are happening. I've got a 13 and a 15. I've got a 27 and a 25. I haven't announced this publicly yet, but like I said, I put my foot in my mouth all the time on these podcasts. I've got a daughter that's pregnant. I've got a daughter that's engaged.
Grandpa Ike.
Grandpa Ike. We'll save that story for later. But like
congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, and Estella and Vegas and wanting to be there for them for this time of their life. Definitely played part of it, right? So, my mom, my uncle, both getting older. It's everyone goes through this. When you're 20 and 30, you woo, and then you get in your 40s and reality, and you get in your 50s, and then reality really sets in, and people get sick around you and get older, and that reality of life was a big part of it. And then the last reason. And again, all these are like two or three things. The last reason was the opportunities that Becky and I want to take, the opportunities that we have a chance to take for these new things that we feel like are bigger and better and new and exciting, right? Dave, do you remember when you first started doing your TV show? Like, there's that excitement of something new. And I think the time's right to do some of those things, in the landscape of professional fishing right now, and the way that reaching people is changing. We're ready for some new ventures. So It felt right. It felt right.
And when you really think about it, making the decision is rare, not just in fishing, in anything. When you look at football, most people don't get to say, I'm done. They may say that in the press conference, but that's because they made a deal with the team that said, hey, we're not going to renew you.
Right.
And they either go try free agent. But most people, and the worst, some people, ended on a stretcher. They ended, but to actually get to make your decision, that's rare. It really is rare.
It's rare. And you mentioned football, and Dave, last year I dealt with an injury. I never had an injury in my entire career. We texted when I missed that event, and literally I told you I was up at night crying. That I was so sad that and I try not to cry, but I was crying. And I think that was a reality check from the physicality standpoint, of aging out a little in this sport. And listen, I know the success stories of old guys and Rick, and man, they're awesome. And I'm so happy for those guys. But I think it's a reality check. And the other part to that is I got to watch friends of mine and also heroes of mine that stepped away on their own terms. And I watched them do it in a beautiful, self-fulfilling way. So, Zona, Kevin, Skeet, guys that were in my class, in my come-up class, that did it their way. And I really respected that and thought it was the way you should do things. And so it felt right, Dave. This is the time.
Well, that's all you, I think in life, sometimes people get stuck in that point where they're just like, I know it's the time, but I'm really not ready to accept this time. But I think that's also the advantage of being you, dude. Like dude, if you look at your entire career, you evolved the whole way through it in so many different ways, whether it be the podcasting stuff, whether it be, so I feel like where Rick Clunn, the one place he feels whole is on the water. Right. And you have that, but you also love to entertain. There's other options for you too that personally I'm excited to see. The stuff you've done while trying to keep down this other job is amazing. So I can't wait till when you and Becky are just focused on that.
We're excited. We're excited. There's some big things, and I've been asked already, like literally 24 hours, oh, are you going to be up there with Mercer? Are you going to be with Ronnie? And I'm like, hell no. That's the hardest job in the world. I couldn't do that. They couldn't pay me enough. I would be no good at that job. Like, I don't think they realize how hard that is. Becky and I have had a lot of projects that we literally just had to put on the back burner. And Dave, it's like 9 weeks plus 3 for this, plus 3 for that, plus, it adds up. And then before you know, it's September. Yeah. And everything that you wanted to do, you were unable to do. So I am very, very, very excited about what the future holds. And, the great thing is there are a lot of people in this world that love to fish.
Yeah.
And, for me, the opportunity to reach a bigger audience through fishing and not professional tournament fishing is very, very exciting. And I say that with all respect to not just bass, but FLW and MLF and all of them. Like, thank you guys for giving me that opportunity, but it's time for me to move on. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I had wondered, and you answered it, like how much watching Kevin, because he was kind of the first, and then you see Skeet, and I mean, Zona hasn't been good at retirement because he's got it's the only thing he's not good at. Like he is obnoxiously good at everything. Like you do anything with Zona, and he's just very good at things. Not good at retiring.
Not good at it. Yeah. And that's the thing, Dave. That's the thing. And I think maybe like Zona, we were really, really trying to steer away from that word retirement because it's not. We sat in the office one day and came up with all these terms. Some made us laugh. We ended up settling on one that was called pivot. It's a pivot. Like, I don't know if that's the right term, but it is just a pivot. And like, I honestly, I can't sit still. I can't, it's not a retirement.
No, and even retirement from competition.
Right. But even the competition side, like retirement from the top tour level events, Bassmaster Elite, even in today's age with all these leagues, is still the best circuit. It's the marquee circuit, right? And it's retiring from that league, from that opportunity. But the competitive side, man, I still am going to burn. And I'm going to scratch it. I'm going to scratch it by doing, I 100% predict I'll do some Bassmaster Opens and I'll do some Toyota series. And Dave, I really want to do more kayak events. I'm only doing about one a year. I'd like to step that up. So, that plus Vegas is really like knocking on the door, right? He's like right behind me. And when I watch him, whether he's in the shop preparing tackle or I'm net man for him or I'm captaining him and he and his partner, I could see it in him. I see the drive and the desire and it's time, I think, to move on at a different level as far as mentoring him and trying to help him further his career as well. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Today's high-tech fishing world can be a real pain in the neck, especially if you're running the wrong mount. Beat Down Outdoors, they bring the graph to you. And they support this podcast and care enough about you to make this a short ad read. Check out Beat Down Outdoors. Now back to the show.
Has that been a hard position for you to mentor? Because it's such a balance. Like you want to give him so much, but that part of the real nugget of success in the best pros, the best people in this industry, you got to discover so much of it by yourself too. Like has that been a hard balance for you coming from your world to mentor him?
Yeah, Dave, it's been a tough one. And it's like you're working with three things that make it a little unusual. The first one, and if you're a parent, this, at the end of the day, I could be the best mentor and coach in the world at trying to teach fishing professionally. But at the end of the day, I'm his dad. And, that is just a fact that you cannot deny. And that changes things a little bit. The second thing is I can only mentor him so much. I can only teach him so much. And you hit it right on the head. You want a young angler to develop in his own style. So I try to give him as much advice and suggestions and, the history that I had as possible. But listen, he needs to fish with other dudes. He needs to fish with other kids his age. He needs to fish as a co-angler, as a marshal. He needs to go and fish for his high school team, his college team. He needs those experiences. We've been sending him to camps in the summer. Kurt Dove has a camp that's great. And he needs those experiences as well, And then the last part of it, Dave, is just that he's a different kid than I am. And, he can regroup and refocus, and he's not mental like I am. He's got to
be the Becky in him.
It's got to be. And he's different. So, so as much as I want to mold him and teach him, I can only do so much. But as a father, Dave, you know this, you'll do anything for your kids. All my kids, I would do anything for. And then when there's this opportunity, I want to do as much as I can and help him in his quest, if that's what his quest ends up being.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's cool if it doesn't, it's his quest today. And it's been awesome to watch him. It's just, I think it's one of those moments that I'm sure you go through a lot of them where you're like, well, holy shit, how am I that guy? Like how did I end up being this guy? You know what I mean? Like I always fancied myself something else in my head. And then you realize, like, as people age around you, that you're like, damn, I'm the old guy now.
Yeah, you become the old guy. You wake up one morning and you look in the mirror, and both of us, I'm looking at both our beautiful beards, and they're gray, and you're wrinkled, and I'm balding, and and you realize you're getting old. But I think your kids are the best gift in the world to keep you young and keep you refreshed and energized, and it's definitely has been a blessing. My family, my kids, my friends, the people I work with, and the fans. Like last night, Dave, we didn't have a giant crowd. We had 600 to 1,000 people on and off this podcast. And you know this because you get the same stuff. But when you hear the stories and the comments and, because, I remember this and I was doing this and this helped me and my mom was sick and this, and you hear those stories and you're like, oh my God, I had an impact on people like that. And that's the things that make me emotional. That's so powerful. And I'm so lucky I had those opportunities to do that,
Yeah.
Special.
I've always said this about you, Ike, of all the people on tour, it's incredible your commitment to fans, and especially younger fans. Like I've watched as, I remember years and years ago, I remember Becky saying it to me, the way she said it, and it stood out to me where I'm like, well, where's Ike? And she's like, he's with fans. Not she was upset about it, but she was just like, he'll be here whenever they're not here. You've had lines into the dark. You've when other people say, I got to go, you don't. Why have you always been that way? Because you've always been conscious of that from the start.
Yeah. It's been the biggest thing in my career is the ability to have that connection with the fans. The thought, Dave, human nature is you have a bad day or a bad week or a bad year or something negative happens. And, especially me, because I'm a little cuckoo, your first instinct is, you want to I'm out. You want to go off the deep edge. But, every time something like that happened, my family or my fans kept me very grounded and very aware of this amazing opportunity. So I'm so lucky. But, the only thing I can tell you is even at 54, I'm a huge fan of fishing. And when I was 12, 13, 14, my Uncle Don started taking me to sport fishing shows. And we have one here in Pennsylvania called the Harrisburg Show. It's been around forever. The Greater Philadelphia Show, the Bass Expo down in Timonium, Maryland was a big one. And I was always such a super fan of the sport that I really paid attention to these guys that I would see. And I would go and watch them at a tank, and I would watch them interact. I would go to a seminar and have my own chance to interact. And it stuck with me, the impact that the guys had that were good at dealing with their fans. Like, I've had interactions with Denny and Guido and Dion, rest in peace, Dion and Guido, that changed the way that I thought about that part of the sport. Like, when you're 12, 13, 14, you're not thinking about fans and brands and sponsors. You want to fish.
Yeah.
But watching that and having my own feelings of, these guys are the best in the world. Thank you, Dion. Thank you, Guido, for talking to me for 5 minutes. Like, I always wanted to be that guy. I never wanted to let someone down. And if someone is taking a minute or 5 or 10 out of their life to talk to you and share something with you, share that moment with them. Dave, I'll be honest, that has been more important than anything in my career.
Yeah.
More important than sponsorships, than trophies, than these businesses. It's been that. And that's the one thing, you look back on stuff and you're like, God, I wish that wouldn't have happened, or I wish I would have did that different. I'm so glad I did that way, Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's been incredible to see. And I mean, and with the lifestyle that you guys live, I mean, I know a lot of people listening to this and saying, well, why wouldn't you? But the lifestyle, I mean, people see you at all sorts of, it's not like you're hidden or coddled or anything. So I think it's something that everybody should learn from.
And we are unique in this sport too, though, because Dave, professional athletes in other sports, and I do as well. And it is a different animal over there,
Yeah.
and in a good and bad way, and it's good because those guys are next level, making next level income, reaching way more people, but it's bad because they can't be regular dudes. Yeah. And I've seen it so many times, and I'm so happy that I ended up in a sport where both of us, participants in this sport, you can be a regular dude. Yeah. And I love that. I love that about professional fishing.
You mentioned a few times, things you regret or you shouldn't have said or whatever. I've always wondered in your mind during your epic Ikes, I guess, your freakouts over the years. Like, at what point does it take you a long time afterwards to come down and be like, yeah, that escalated quickly? Or it has to be times when you're doing it and you're just like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I want to get inside your mind is what I'm saying. Yeah.
And I don't advocate the way, everybody should deal with, failure or difficulty or distress. Everyone should do it their own way. And I do not advocate the way that I've dealt with it in the past whatsoever. But for me, it worked. And, literally what I think subconsciously what was going on was it was a way to, see the reality of the situation, get it out, let all that negative energy out in a quick period of time, 30 seconds to a couple minutes, and then get on with the day. And then even beyond that moment, I think it always, for me, became a driving force to do better or get to the next level. Yeah. So, sometimes for people, negativity can kill them. It'll drain them. It'll wear on them. Like Becky handles it the opposite way. she'll be mad at something and she'll let it simmer and simmer and simmer. It'd be 3 months later, she's still pissed off about it. And for me, with the schedule and the way that we fish, it was the right thing to do for me. And again, could I go back and change a couple of them? Absolutely, of course, right? If I could get in that hot tub time machine, have a nice cold beer, and go back and like just tweak them a little, there's a couple I would tweak. But in general, here's the thing, Dave. I don't think I would want to change it, the big picture, because it makes me a different person, you know? And I think the final outcome in a lot of those situations would have been a lot different, you know? So
I think it's also like, if you look through your career, and again, I mean, everybody has their own, it's your brand. Like, I remember sitting with you the night of the Hall of Fame after you were inducted. And I remember you said to me, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't. And I remember saying to you, and I honestly still believe this today, I'm like, yeah, because you're not supposed to be the guy with the blue jacket. You're the guy who doesn't get invited to this dinner.
Yeah,
you're an outsider.
They hate me. Why am I here?
That fueled you a lot. And I think but you were an underdog. Like, if you look at the hate that a lot of young anglers have got recently.
Yeah.
Dude, boy, you were hated.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people in the North before Kevin, and he kind of broke down that. But
yeah.
But then you came along and you were a whole different critter. Like, do you remember, like, when you look at the hate guys are going through today, can you compare it to anything you dealt with?
I mean, I can and I can't, you know, like I can, because that negative energy was all around me. And it was like, literally, like, I think every day, you know, you dealt with something. And when you were in the spotlight, it was amplified times 100, you know. But, you know, the thing that I think kept me sane, and you know, like, I hope some young guys are listening to this, is that, you know, like, when you have a focus and a passion, and you're like, really, it's literally like this, you know, and you almost have blinders on, it kind of just doesn't bother you, you know? Yeah. And that's a great advice. And don't let it bother you. Let it bounce off you. You know, being from the Northeast, you know, literally born in Philadelphia, grew up in Jersey. Dude, people were pissed at us I just came out of the womb, and the doctor was yelling at me, probably. Like, you know, so I think, especially for me in this environment, I was very used to, you know, dealing with negativity and just, you know, fuck them, you know. Yeah. You can't let it get in the way of what you're trying to do. So, so there was a lot of that. So I can relate to it. And then, you know, there's elements I can't. Like, these young kids, and Dave, they're so good. I know you've had a bunch on lately. I know they are so freaking stellar talented. I cannot even tell you. And not just at scoping. I mean, these dudes are legit real, but they've come up in a different era. Totally. Yeah. Their resource base is so massive, and not just from the income and the ability to fish every day. You know, and I'm not throwing shade there, because I have that with Vegas, right? Yeah. I can't be mad at that. But, you know, the information, the podcast, the .com stuff, the videos, the TikToks, gosh, it's so impressive how good they're getting at a young age. So I can't, you know, for me, it was not that route. It was, you know, crawling for information, clawing for it. And it was getting out and fishing the clubs and working your way up through the federation. There wasn't even high school or college tournaments yet. And so I can't relate to some of the things they're going through, but, you know, the best advice is just put them blinders on, accept the positive, and ignore the negative. Yeah. Ignore the negative, you know?
I guess the big difference from the outside looking in, I would think is it was easier for you to put blinders on. You didn't you know what I mean? You knew people, yeah. You knew that group over there was saying something about you, but you didn't know what they were saying. Right. You didn't physically read it to deal with it the way, that's what's gross about the whole. Yeah. I mean, social media is incredible in many ways, but that's the grossest to me. It's just like, and it's not just fishing, it's everything.
It's everything. Yeah.
Wait till you hear what they say about your glasses in the comments.
I know. Well, I told you I'm bringing the retro look back this year, so I figured I would incorporate that into my glasses as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of negativity, not just in bass fishing, but in the world right now, and unfortunately, social media perpetuates a lot of that, and that's the way life is. But here's the thing, Dave, if you believe in yourself and you know that you are the person that you are is what you're portraying, what you're doing, you're real. You got to give the middle finger to those guys. You shouldn't let it affect you. Now, if those comments that are coming through, are semi-true, then maybe it affects you more. But if it doesn't, if it's not who you are, keep walking. Just keep walking the path.
It's great advice. You one of the things that really stood out to me from last night's podcast, and I say last night, this doesn't air till Wednesday, right before the Elite Series starts. So it'll be a week old, but you're busy pre-fishing and everything right now. But one of the things that you guys said, and I took the audio clip and I'll just play it here real quick. And I want your reaction why this is important.
Okay.
We 100% support the next generation of young anglers.
Yeah.
And guys, listen, this is just a changing of the guard. And we can't dismiss or pour negativity onto this next group because it will drive the sport into the ground. We have to give the keys over to the next group and support the next group. And hold them high, right? And that's how we get hold them high.
Then it gets into a debate of holding.
Then there were short jokes about the height of minus Easton Fothergill, the average height of a lot of the new elite guys. Yeah, but I'm glad you picked up on that, Dave. And it actually hearing it back it's making me emotional again, because let me start by saying I've been guilty myself in the last few years of, spinning things in a negative direction. And I'm sorry for doing that. It's not right of me to do that, right? Like, listen, I'm a big advocate of everybody should have their own opinion. And I say that on Ike Live, and I want people to comment their opinion. And that's what's great about this world we live in, right? You should be able to do that. In the United States, you should be able to say what you want to say. But at the same time, as an elder statesman, getting ready to leave the thing that I've loved for 30 plus years, I can't be that person and feel good about myself. I can't do it, Dave. I don't want to be that person. Not to name any names, because I know you would beat them out, which you should. But I don't want to be some of the old disgruntled anglers that I've seen the last few years that I've heard. I don't want to be them. I want to be the guy that helps them. Yeah. And whatever that means, like if it's just the positivity, if it's, can I do something? Can I help? I want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy to bring this sport into a dark place. And that for me is like, has been a mission for me this last year. It's to have fun, to go out and remember why I love fishing the Bassmaster Elites. But it's also to go out as a partner with the sport, right? Go out as a partner with the sport, not as a detractor, but go out as a partner with the sport of professional bass fishing and try to help it in every way I can. And it is the truth, Dave. You see it in other sports where you have to have that next group. And why impede them? Let's not impede them. Let's let them in and let's let them grow it just like hopefully we did as well in our prime,
Well, first of all, dude, that says a lot about you that you're willing to admit that you were on the other side of that at times. And
at times, for sure.
But how did you get here? What brought you from that to where you're feeling the way you are today?
Well, I think, everyone has to look in the mirror at some point. And, a lot of people do it daily, and sometimes it takes longer. And I think it was almost the reality now of this is it, right? This is it. The reality of the impact I could have. Did I want that to be stagnant, flat? Did I want it to be negative? Or did I want to try to take it to a place where it's positive and fun? And, and as I looked in the mirror and said that to myself, what I thought about was when I was the young kid coming up and the blocks that I had, the negativities that I had, and I looked in the mirror and I saw a 26-year-old kid and said, that kid was having fun and he loved it. And I want that in my last season, not just for me, but I want it for the sport. I want it for the sport. So, we all make mistakes, Dave. We all sometimes slip in a bad place. And I think, what makes us human is we have the ability to change and get out of that place. And I want this last season to be special in a lot of different ways. I really do.
I don't think you fully probably comprehend how important what you just said is, in my opinion. Like you are not just a star in this sport, but you are somebody who I put in a very rare group. And there's a few guys who I put in this group, and you're definitely one of them. You are a thought leader in this sport. And I think that there's a weight that comes with being a thought leader, because, hey, you just want to have your own opinion. But I think for the industry to hear what you just said will make an incredibly gigantic impact. So thank you for doing that, Ike.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that, Dave. I appreciate it.
You said you want to have a little fun in your final season, and you, dude, everything's marketing to you. I mean, I know the second you said out, it was like full scale. Let's get the team together. Let's plan this out. You and Becky figured out exactly what you're going to do. But you said you're going to be retro Ike. Tell me about it.
Yeah, retro. I think, we've dabbled with, the fun and the history of old school, and I'm into that, not just in fishing, but like in life, I love the old school eras, whether it's the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. I just have a connection with that.
You friggin' collect ink bottles, dude.
They're all around me as I'm talking to you right now.
Ever. Like every time I think of you collecting an ink, like Ike in a place. Oh, that's a beautiful ink bottle. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but it gives an idea of how much into history and how much respect you have for it.
I love history. But, the retro thing really, I think, makes us happy. Just here, the Becky and the family and the team, and we have a lot of fun. Like, it's a fun thing. So, you want to do things that are fun. The other thing, Dave, is it's been really, really like the fans, the audience they've loved it. And so, with last year being the Dirty 30 season, and we did some retro stuff last year with a vest, and guys loved it. And then this year, we thought, well, let's put out a survey, and we did just an informal survey on social media, bring back something retro or a totally new, modern redesigned. And it was like 93% to retro, So yeah, I think it was a no-brainer. And again, for me, with this vision of this last season, getting back to my roots and being fun, I can't think of a more fun time in my career than that 2004 to 2006 era. And when we looked at that era, that was the Flames, that was like a lot of these old, the jersey was cotton. with a collar and buttons, and the jackets were puffy and the hats were higher. And, like just the nostalgia of that, I think, is the perfect fit for our last season, for 2026. So, Dave, it's going to be so fun. Like, not just the truck and the boat and the jersey, but, like some of the things we're going to do, some of the promotions, the sweepstakes, the raffles, some of the authentic old school memorabilia we're going to bring back, Dave. Look at this.
That's the original red Berkeley satin, or what is it? Satin? What is
this? It's satin, or it's silky. You could almost scratch on it is the best way to describe it. But it's got the tight elastic sleeves. It has the trilene embroidery down the sleeves. And of course, Berkeley Tri's got my name. And actually, Becky was in the process of doing this. And then we decided we wanted to show this on the show. Dave, I've got a retro BASS patch that's going right here on the opposite side of that jacket.
Oh my gosh.
Retro shield that is very, very hard to get. This isn't your run-of-the-mill bass shield. And then, of course, just like we used to do back in the day, look at that embroidery! Oh my God, I love it.
You added 5 pounds of embroidery to it.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully it's fun for the older anglers and the younger guys as well. Yeah. It's like, I think if you're 40, 35, 38 plus, you feel that nostalgia yourself. But I hope it's fun for the younger guys as well. And, honestly, I think this because of your work with the Hall of Fame, but there is maybe a lack of understanding sometimes of the history of the sport. And so, like bringing some of that stuff back and, helping the young guys realize that there was a lot that happened before them.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's going to be fun. And I can't wait to get on stage with you with some of the stuff that we found. It's so good. It's so good.
I'm so excited. And the second I saw that jacket, I legitimately freaked out because I don't think the average person watching this understands what that jacket meant back in the day. Like if you didn't even have to know who it was, but if you saw somebody walking through a trade show or somewhere with that jacket, you were like, well, that's the guy. That is.
Dave, if you saw this jacket, and many times it would have their name, it would, of course, you saw the bass shield. It was so important. It would have their bass club many times. Dude, you knew, just like you said, Dave, you were like, oh, is that? Guys would be whispering down the aisles and it, that mystique. But it wasn't just that look. It was that whole era. Like, as you were saying that, Dave, I could close my eyes and remember the smell of original power bait.
Yeah.
Blue fleck, camo, black chartreuse tail, like the original power bait smell. Like I remember that, and it just makes me so happy. The memories are so good. God, I live for reliving that era. I really do. It was so fun,
Avco not only makes incredible outdoor clothing, but they care about anglers with their 10% pledge. Avco and the Shed family donate at least 10% of the company's profits to conservation and making fishing better. Now back to the show.
The only thing that jacket's missing is the really good guys. They would actually have their accomplishments embroidered on it. So like for you, it'd be the Top Rod Bassmasters, whatever the year, 82, 83, 84, 85 champion qualifier.
Yes. It's so good. It's so good.
Wow. And you're bringing back the Flame jersey, right? But supplemented this time.
Yeah, bring it back Flame jersey. And we worked with Gemini Sports. Shout out to Gemini Sports. Did a great job of, recreating that authentic 2004 jersey. And, They just did such a good job. So sublimation, breathable. Actually, you could wear it when it's hot, not like that one. But it's got the collar. David's got the fly collar on it. And I told this story last night, but I do want to tell it again. I'll give you a quicker version. That as mundane as that seems, in 2004, wearing a jersey that had flames on it that was self-designed. Dude, it was the biggest controversy of the season. Like, everybody wore, if you were sponsored by Ranger or Triton or whatever the boat company was, or your outboard, Mercury, Yamaha, Evinrude, it was almost like a blood oath to wear a jersey that was designed by them.
Yeah.
And when I actually unveiled the flame jersey at the 2004 Gunnersville event.
Yeah.
So it's so cool that it's coming full circle. But I think it was the third day, or maybe the fourth. I can't remember. Maybe it was the fourth day, and I was not catching them. I had a camera on me, and I just like started catching them, and I was so like jacked. I took my rain suit off, and there it was. And Dave, people freaked out. And I got calls from sponsors, and fans were disgruntled. Oh my God, he has the Ike logo. It's as big as the boat logo.
Who does he think he is?
Nothing should be bigger than the Ranger Boats logo. Can you imagine that being a problem now? Oh, it's so funny. But again, it's just, it makes me proud to have been a part of the sport, and whatever part that was, like, just, like 100 years from now, we'll also be dead and gone. Who knows? But, I have a little sliver of a history of professional bass fishing. And I'm so proud of that, Dave. I'm so proud of that feeling. It's so good, man. It's so good.
When you think back to that moment, and I think it's natural to have a little bit of this in everybody, but when you do something new, especially something like that, like a jersey was something you thought out and you decided to unveil it at a certain moment, and it just was an unveiling. But like right before you do it, was there any part of you that was like, oh boy, we'll see how this goes? Or were you giddy from the excitement of let's see what they say now?
Yeah, that's always been a problem in my life, has always been. I usually just do and don't think. And it gets me in trouble a lot. And sometimes it's a home run,
Yeah.
But no, it was just one of those moments that was a do, and it felt right. And, I went out that day wearing that jersey knowing I would want to show it, and again, you look back and, man, those little things, did it help the sport? Did it change the sport? Maybe it gave somebody inspiration. Maybe somebody could relate to it. I don't know. I don't know if it did or not, but you look back on it.
It did, Ike. Come on.
But here's the thing. You did it your way. And I think that is the ultimate thing, to do it your way. Like, I feel like we talked about this on another one of your shows, but there was a time when I was fishing the invitationals early. This is early, Dave. This is like my first invitational, I think, was 93. Yeah. And I didn't even have a boat yet, I don't think. And, I almost wanted to try to fit in, and like, like the way you talk, the way you look, and, like gone to, meetings and this and that and hanging out at the right places, or, and it just like, it was so awkward and it didn't feel right. And so as I started to kind of come out of my shell, it was the most right feeling I've ever had in my life. And with all the positivity and negativity, it didn't change the way that I felt. And, I think in 2002, when my uncle was diagnosed with cancer in 2002, he was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I watched him go through the treatment and battle that and beat it. And like, that was the final straw on not conforming and living your life to who you are. and knowing that, listen, you're going to make people happy and you're going to piss people off. But if it's who you actually are, you're doing the right thing. And honestly, Dave, looking back at it, it all came full circle. A lot of it came around, and I think the authenticity of being who you are will outlast anything. It'll outlast your career, sponsorships, things like that. Wins, they come and go, but the authenticity will be there to the end. And fans see that, and that's important,
Yeah, if today's generation has one thing right, it's that people are a lot more themselves than ever. In that, people,
awesome.
and I still see it with young anglers. You know what I mean? I joke about Seth. Seth's a prime example, and that's not that long ago. Seth, the first couple of years, showed up and tried to be what he, in his head, envisioned the bass fishing world wanted him to be.
Yeah.
And the second he said, screw it, and just became himself.
Perfect.
He's who he is today, literally, arguably one of the most marketable names in the sport, and definitely with one of the strongest followings.
100%.
So it's definitely, and I would say, I jokingly said when you were talking there, I said, and I know you don't, but you do know, dude. We have a guy in the Elite Series that has never give up tattooed on his freaking arm. You don't have to even look outside of fellow competitors to say, who have I inspired? I watch people fight fish, and I know who their favorite pro was growing up. Watch Brandon Palnick fight a freaking fish and put it side by side with Mike Iaconelli. He watched a lot of you growing up.
It's great. Yeah, and Dave, you've had an impact with people too. And like I said, that is a feeling that is overwhelming, and it's such a good feeling. It's so good to know that you've had impact on people. But honestly, deflecting just me a little bit, that error was a golden error. And Dave, looking back, I was so lucky or blessed, or however you want to think about it, to have had my come up in that error. When I look at the mid 90s to, 2016, 17, 18, that stretch, and especially, I think, the late 90s to early 2000s stretch was so magical. And I'm so happy that I was a part of that, of just a different new time of the sport. And I look back and I'm like, man, had I come up earlier or later, I don't think I could have had the impact, or I don't think I would have been as good even at fishing, even in a different era. So, you look back on that and you're like, man, I got lucky. I got lucky to be in a really good era of the sport. And here's the thing, though. It was a golden era, but it's not the last. We've got new eras that are coming that are probably going to be better than that era. And I'm excited to see that. That's that future of the sport that we're talking about,
It's funny because the whole time you're saying that, I keep thinking of a famous line, and the meme floats around, but it's from The Office. And I was literally looking for it while we were talking. And, the line was, where is it? Right here. I'll just play it. Hold on.
The weird thing is, now I'm exactly where I want to be. I got my dream job at Cornell.
Hold on. It's not the right part.
Just thinking about my old house. Only now they're the ones I made here.
This is horrible, Ike. Your production. Here it is.
I'm having flashbacks to Brian the Carpenter.
That's a compliment. Okay, here it is. I found it. I could have just said it.
I made here.
Here it comes.
I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left.
It's a freaking wild line, but it's true.
It's so true. It is so true. And you there is no way to know, because you're just going through the motions and you're living the moment. And, I think you're aware of certain things. And if anything, and I give a lot of the credit to Becky and the team that she's created, but you're aware of certain things that you're like, man, this works, so let's do more of this, or, this would help with this. But there are a lot of things you're not aware of, and it's just happening. It's just happening around you,
Just treading water. You're too busy.
You're just treading water, and you're a part of the flow. It's like, if you look at the delta, like water shoots out of a delta and it's just fingers all over. That's all it is. You're just flowing out there. You're going this way, that way. But I think, I think a thing that a lot of older guys do is they reminisce, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm jaded, but I do think that was one of the golden eras. Yeah.
And you're lucky to think that, because there's other sports where people look back and say, gosh, if I just came along today things would be, look at hockey players. I mean, some of the old hockey players, they look at today's players, and it's the same in every sport. But here's go ahead.
No, real quick. I was just going to, the crazy thing is most of the time that, and like other sports, like hockey's a great example. A hockey player from that same era, the 90s, the 2000s, they're looking at these young guys. They're looking at their talent, and they're same thing we're doing. We're like, holy shit, they're good. But those guys are looking at what they're making, and they're like, holy shit. The best guys, we're making less now than we did back then. Like, that's the weird thing. Like, that was the heyday of the sport, not only from winnings, but also sponsorships. I said this on the podcast, and I pulled it back at error, so I didn't put it all on my error. But, dude, Dave, there was a time in the 90s, 92, 3, 4, guys like Denny Brower, and David Fritz, and Biffle, and Mark Davis, they were getting like 10 to 12 no-charge engines from the motor company.
Yeah.
That will never exist again in the history of this.
I mean, Denny Brower was on David Letterman twice.
Amazing.
I mean, you were on, it's incredible, when you look at some of the, why has that changed, do you think?
I mean, this is a conversation where if you talk to really, really educated people, they're going to give you the answer from the statistics standpoint. Yeah. And they're going to dive into money and numbers and the business side. And I'm not very good at doing that. I can't argue with those guys. I tried to do that a couple years ago at the Hall of Fame after party, and I'm no good at that. But I can tell you. I
saw that argument.
But I can tell you this, to me, it's so much more spread out, and you have these amazing technologies and things that have helped and hurt. Yeah. You have, brands that aren't as strong because of dilution, organizations that aren't as strong because of dilutions. And then some of it, honestly, and again, I've turned the corner. I'm a positive man in 2026. But
I'm not trying to get you out of that. Just so you know.
I know. But I put some of it on, and there's two sides, so I'll be okay. I do put some of it on the organizations, the competitors themselves, and even the sponsors themselves, right? Like, some of it even has to go on them. Like, I think the anglers have to realize their worth, and they have to, advocate for better things. So it's on the anglers. I think that the organizations need to say, man, let's put some effort into getting these guys out there. Let's put some effort into highlighting the sport, not when negative things happen. Like, I don't want to go to Europe and hear about the walleye cheating scandal one more time.
Yes.
I want to go to Europe and hear about this kid that's coming up in Bassmasters, and he's so good, and why, and his life, and why, and what's happened to him, and what makes him. I want to hear about that. So some of it's on that, and some of it's even on the sponsorships. I told you, Dave, it's a changing world. When you hear things like pro staff isn't as important, the tournament world isn't as important, we don't need this as much because we have other things like influencers or this or that. Some of it's on that too. So it's a bunch of things. But can you imagine being Denny Brower and having a truck back down your driveway? Beep, 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 and freaking 12 outboards come out.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
A good time. It was a good time.
Man.
I think also that what goes into that is the number of people pulling from it now. Like if you look at how many pros there was then, I mean, it has, I've never done the math, but I don't even think 10X is exaggerating the amount. Like whether, if you look at everybody from Bass, everybody from the Elites, the Opens, MLF, Toyota Series, NPFL, the college guys, the high school guys, kindergarten crappie. There's all of those guys have got spun, and they've literally driven the market. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons, but
it's so diluted. Yeah, 2006 is an era of dilution. But I look back on something that's funny. Becky and I were laughing about it the other day. I want to say this is like probably about. It was right around 2012, 2014, and we had Ish on an Ike Life podcast. And I loved Ish on the show because he would say, like, pretty much he didn't have a filter either. And it's always great having those guys on. And he went on this rant about, like, oh, screw these guys that are putting logos on their jersey for nothing. They're wrapping their boat. Screw these guys. And, like, Becky and I were like, the other day, we're like, damn, Ish was right. But listen, it is what it is. And I get, the nature of the beast. I understand it. Vegas has got logos on his jerseys for, he's getting stuff, but probably, should be getting more. So I get it. But like, imagine a day when some kind of standardization kicks in. And, again, and that's why I'm putting this on the anglers. I'm putting it on me. I'm an angler too. Like, why haven't we been able to have more of an influence on things like that? And what if there were professional standards? And what if, every dude walking down the street with a jersey you didn't think was a pro? Like, what if there was a way? I don't know. I think that maybe at some point something like that has to happen. I don't know. It'll be exciting to see.
Yeah, man. Because you look, I mean, it's been tried. I mean, there's been a lot of different groups that, and then it kind of fragments off. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's a big rise that we're going to do this, and I mean, ultimately, it's better for everybody involved at the end of the day. Happy people in an industry is the most important thing of literally anything. Like whether it's your family, your business, whatever, the happier people are when they're in that world is best. Yeah. And it's not an easy place to make a living now. One of the things, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, wouldn't it be great if you ever see the professional arm wrestling matches, and and these massive guys, giant arms, and they set on the pad and they put their hands together, but then there's a guy that like makes sure like everything's kosher. Yeah. Like the placement's right. It's like the official. Like how cool would it be to do that with like the different leagues? Like to have, MLF and Bass and NPFL like all like holding hands together for an arm wrestling competition. You're like, all right, guys, listen, we got to work this out. Like we're going to take this moment to work all this out and turn this sport into a big positive place. That would be cool. I don't know. I just had a dream.
I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I found something out that shocks the crap out of me, and I'd never heard it before. But at one time, Jerry McInnes tried to sell the sport on FLW being AFC and Bass being NFC. They were doing coverage for both of them. And dude, when you think about that, you're just like, well, how different are things? It's wild. It's amazing. Wild. I mean, you could spend, it's podcast gold. Literally, you could just be like, come back for next week's episode where we dissect this entire topic.
And it's morphing. It's constantly morphing and changing. And our sport's pretty young, Dave. You know that. We're from the 70s. So, look at other sports. Man, they've been through a lot of this in the, 40s, 50s, 60s, before our sport was even born. Yeah. So it'll all morph. And, you're always very hopeful. And I, I hope that it morphs for us in the right direction. Again, positivity,
Hey, you had mentioned something just a minute ago before we got off on that, which our conversations go a lot of directions. But you had mentioned, that was a golden era, but there'll be more. I have a weird theory when I look at bass fishing, and I look at let's call a spade a spade. You go online, there's a certain group that maybe doesn't like forward-facing sonar, doesn't think it's like it used to be. Yeah. This is not the bass that I grew up with. This is not the name that I'm used to. And there's other groups. There's also a different group where you got a lot of young guys who are like, I love what these guys are doing. It's as exciting to them at 20 years old as it was to you at 20 years old.
Yes.
Do you think in some ways what's happening in our sport, if you put it in other assets of your life, is almost totally natural? And for an example, I'll give you an example. Music. I mean, everybody has different tastes in music, but I'll be honest, at the point I'm at in life, most of my stuff I like is older. It's newer stuff that comes along that I like. Yeah. But my playlist is way older than it is stuff that came out I'm officially that kind of old that people show up on awards shows and I have to ask my kids who they are. I remember my parents being there. But what I'm saying is, if you look what's happening in our sport, is it natural what's happening? If you put it in basketball, I'm always going to think Michael Jordan is the greatest. Guess what? My son is always going to think it's LeBron James.
Right.
And that's normal.
That's normal. It's normal. It's natural. The music analogy is a perfect one. My uncle loves Motown. He hates rap. That's a normal thing in life. And I think you can't stop that or change that. That's the way it's going to be. The fishing thing with technology is, and again, Dave, this is one that you can't win an argument, right? You should believe what you believe, and it should be right for you. And that's the ultimate answer, right? But the analogy, if we want to stick to music analogies, I'll give you a real good one. And if any of your viewers happen to be DJs in the 80s and 90s, they're going to get where I'm coming from. The rest of all your other listeners or viewers have a question mark over their head right now. But I DJ'd starting in the late 80s all the way through till I graduated university. I loved it. Dave, it was so fun. It reminded me a lot of some things I do in fishing where you're entertaining people and you're making them happy, okay? I used actual turntables with vinyl records. And I would put a vinyl record down on the left platter and I would put a vinyl record down on the right platter. As the left record was playing, my job as a DJ was to creatively mix in or blend the song that was coming on the right platter. And so, DJing was by sound, by feel, manual, speed up, slow down. There was this art to it that felt very natural. Like once you got it, that was what DJing was. Yeah. And I still love DJing. And again, I can't hate on modern DJs, but now we have machines that mix the beats. We have buttons. It's almost automated. And, that's sort of, I think, what a lot of the older guys, right or wrong, maybe a lot of the older fans of the sport are seeing. Yeah. They have a yearning for the sport that was instinctive and manual and, reading the conditions and not technical. And, and again, I'm not here to argue that because I don't, Dave, I'm in the worst position ever because my son loves it. Vegas loves it. And I do not want to be the guy that spoils it for him or his peers or people in that group. I want them to love the sport. It's not right for me to ruin him, right? And so that's the position I'm in. So, I have my feelings and they're my feelings. And
you're allowed them.
Right.
That's where I think the disconnect is, where people say it has to be this way and that's the only way. That's never the way fishing's been.
I don't think life's like that. I don't think life's like that,
I mean, and exactly the same thing's happening. Like when you use music analogies, like I remember being a kid and listening to rap and having parents say that's not real music.
It's not music.
Digital. They're taking our songs and they're re-sampling them. They're not even musicians. That's not even the same thing. And you know what? They are right if you look at it from their terms. Like to them, you have to have a guitar and you have to strum this. But guess what? That doesn't mean it's wrong. It never went away because they felt that. It's just weirdly natural. But I think weirdly in our sport right now, there's a feeling like it's not like, no, this is, you can still love it the same way. Not everything's going to be for everybody.
100%. And I think the next big jump in our sport, I'm not the first one to say this. I'm sure it's been mentioned dozens of times on your show, but I think the next big jump is to give the fan and viewer the access to whoever they want to watch, whoever they relate to. And that's going to happen. I would say, and I don't talk to Mike every day, Mike Iaconelli every day, but I would say we're probably close. But there is a day when, we're going to be able to go on there. And if I want to watch Kyle Patrick for an hour, I'll watch Kyle Patrick. And if I want to watch Greg, if I want to watch Hackney go flip, I'm going to switch over to Hackney. And if I want to watch Steve Kennedy say, I can watch that. And I think that day's coming. And like if you look at, these guys that are doing their own lives now, there's a buddy tournament going on called Dual Threat right now. Yeah. A couple of the guys are doing tremendous job at just streaming their day.
Yeah.
And I think when that catches up and that happens, I think we're going to see the sport really take a leap and a jump to the next level. And I think it will shift that tide of negativity a little bit, allowing guys to watch what they want to watch,
I've run a Yamaha outboard for over 30 years. It has got me home safe each and every time. If you enjoy this podcast, remember, Yamaha supports it and they care enough about you to make this ad read very short. Now back to the show.
Well, it puts some of the onus back in the anglers too, because number one, that gives you power. Like if you're the guy who gets a lot of views and there's some that don't, that gives you more power. But it also kind of encourages. I don't think everybody's looked at the sport like you do, Ike. Everything's marketing to you.
Right.
So your negatives have become positives. You know what I mean? Like you are very marketing. And I think that's a cool thing about you. You're always looking for a way to market things. We have to the sport has to take care of that in the way that, like, when guys are making sure there's eyeballs on them, they're going to put on more of a show. They're going to tell more. They're going to give more. So, I think the truth is, gosh, we have no idea what this is all going to look like in 5 years, 10 years. Like, if you look at how far live bass fishing has been around 10 years and you look how far it is, like we went from just being like, oh my God, I think I see what he's doing there to, good God, why can't I see everyone? This is ridiculous.
As a fan of it, it's fun to watch it. Like I said, like last couple of years, I didn't have great years. So I got to watch a lot of the lives on day 3 and 4. And man, I love it. As a fan of the sport, I love watching the process and watching all of it, you know? So the more of that I could see, oh gosh, it'll just get better,
Yeah. And it communication wise, it's a golden era. Like Trip Weldon still to this day. And I always use this example because Trip's in our time.
Yep.
Trip's a little older than us, but he's of our time. He still to this day can remember the number he used to call at bass. Off the top of his head, if you ask him, he gives you the number that he used to call at the end of the day, and it would say, today, Mike Iaconelli is in third. Kevin Van Dam is in fifth. So like it would give that, and he remembers
so good.
that being, oh my gosh, I got this number and I get to call and I get the results. Like that was amazing.
So good.
Like we're watching, and with things like AI and stuff, like, I mean, who knows where it will be? I mean,
who knows?
Uncle Pappy is fake. Do you know who Uncle Pappy is?
No, Uncle Pappy?
You ever seen the videos of the guy that's in the swamp? He's like an older guy. He's in the swamp in Florida. Like he stands in the swamp. I'm sure you've seen him.
I've probably seen it. Maybe I saw it and I instantly flagged it as AI and swiped.
maybe this dude. I've not been good at calling up videos here, but
Uncle Pappy.
Okay, so I'm sure you've seen this dude. I don't even know what he's talking about here, but I'm just going to show you.
Oh yes, yeah. Of course I've seen that guy.
Oh, dude, dude, it came out last week. He's not an old guy. He's like in his late 20s. He's been using an AI filter this whole time. I mean, like Uncle Pappy is real, is fake. Like there he is in real life. I don't know if you can even see it, but
hey, he's a young guy with the mustache that everybody's got. Yeah,
he's a filter.
AI is making everyone Ed Bassmaster, just like that. No, but I still like. It's funny, like you talk about this and it's funny, but like in my heart, I'm still thinking about the trip story because I'm visualizing somebody on a rotary phone. They go back to their house and the phone's mounted on the wall, and it's normally between the kitchen and the living room or the kitchen and the dining room. And they pull it off, and it's big, and they pull it, and it's got a cord attached to it, and they go tick 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 tick. Oh my God, that's great!
Oh, and God forbid you screw up like the fifth number, start over again.
That's only that's the TVA number. I didn't want the damn release numbers. Damn it!
Do you know we have one of those at our bar at home? We've got a bar in the basement, and I said I want to run it, so I'll sit, and sometimes I've talked to a buddy. I'm like, I'm taking it on the landline, and I don't know why. But when we first got it, we put it in front of our kids and said, dial a number. They couldn't. Like it took them a while to. What do you mean? You go all the way around? Like it's.
Oh yeah, it's so great.
Well, dude,
it makes me happy. I love talking about this stuff. It makes me so happy.
It's. You remember people that had that long cord, and if you wanted privacy, you'd like go in the closet.
Oh yeah, you go in a whole different room. It reached to the bathroom. So in my grandmom's house. So you got to remember, like back in the day, Dave. It ain't like today. Like I grew up. And when I was, 6 until my mom got her own place, I was probably 12 or 13. We all lived together. That's a Philly thing. Like you lived with, my mom lived with her mom and dad, and my uncle lived there. So her brother lived there, and I lived there, and the dogs. And it's just how it's an ethnic thing. Anyway, I would get privacy by going in the bathroom, which was in the hall. That's so good, man.
The whole dating process. Think you had to call there was no now you're just you don't have to call anyone. You've got a direct contact to that person. But before it used to be like, who is this? Like people used to call. My mother hated that people called me Dave. I mean, she was the only person that she held on to the David. And people would call up and they'd be like, may I please speak to Dave? And she'd be like, no, Dave lives here. We have a David.
She was mad. Oh, what a great time. What a great time. Man, take me back.
Well, I have enjoyed this conversation as I've enjoyed
me too.
Being able to see some of the most amazing moments in the history of the sport that you were the star of. And I can't wait for this season. I mean, I'm honestly... This is exciting. Like I'm always excited going into the season, but I can't wait to see what you have in store because last year was the Dirty 30, and here's 31, nothing but fun. I'm all for it.
Such already wrote something, and he's called it 30+1. So I don't know. Maybe we steal that from Such, but Dave, I appreciate it, and it is nice to get on a show and look somebody in the eye who's a friend and a peer and get to share those stories and the memories. And it is as good for me, for my soul, as you could imagine. It really is. And this is a positive thing. I have no regrets about my career, and I have no regrets about making this decision. I can't wait to see you this year, Dave. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to be all smiles when I get up there, even when I don't catch them.
I don't believe that.
Now, wait a minute. Now, Pat Renwick, dealing with Pat behind the scenes. Now, I might not be nice to him, but I'll be nice to you every time I come.
Take it out on Pat. I mean, what a position. That used to be where you guys could just decompress. Some debates would happen back there with what happened on the bar. Tuck in your shirt, and now we got a camera there.
I feel bad for Pat. Pat's a good dude, and they gave him a really shitty job because, I mean, he's dealing with the best and worst of everything going on. But I look forward to it, Dave. It's going to be a fun year, and here's the big thing: fun and positive.
Gosh, this is. I don't know. Those glasses are working for you. I feel like it's got a bit of a older Beastie Boys vibe, maybe, or an older. I feel like I'm actually negotiating with an older Jewish businessman in New York City.
That's right. I am feeling a little verklempt right now. So you're right. You're right.
Congrats on everything.
Thanks,
I will
Dave.
see you for the first event, and positive Ike. I love it.
See you in a week. Positive year, 2026.
It'll actually be tomorrow. Okay, so sorry. See ya.
Oh my God. We'll see you, Dave.
Always a great conversation with Ike. Can't thank him enough for being as open and as honest as he was. A great, great conversation. And I can't tell you how refreshing it was to hear him say what he said about young anglers and the future of this sport and supporting all parts of the sport. Remember, there is no future without the past, and there is no sport without the future. We all need to support each other, and I hope the industry is listening to some of the things that Ike said, because pretty powerful stuff. This is the part of the show where I thank you for watching, but also say like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. Let's keep the grow going. Do everything you can to help stroke the algorithm and keep this show growing, because I appreciate you tuning in each and every week. But remember, life isn't easy. Everybody is fighting a battle, whether you see it or you don't. Spread happiness, spread kindness throughout the world. It will make other people feel better and ultimately make you feel better. And at the end of the day, it's one little way we can all make the world better. Have a great week. Enjoy being, and as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?